The really fabulous thing about the little baked goods I'm going to share with my guest Heather today is that they only take, like 10 minutes to cook, which is fabulous because I burnt the first batch, but I still had time to get the second batch in and out before we start. My guest today is the very lovely Heather MacKenzie, who I've never met in person, despite the fact that we have many friends in common on the Sunshine Coast, don't we, Heather?
We have several, yes.
I know, isn't that amazing? And you're sitting in your, 65 square metre apartment in Denver, Colorado. And is it warm over there?
It's quite warm, at least to someone like me who prefers snow. We hit about 35 feet today here.
Oh.
So that's more than enough for me.
Yeah. That's quite warm. I'm sitting here in a scarf because it's raining and a bit cool, which I love.
You and I have different ideas, I think, of cool.
Yeah. Sunshine Coast cool really is very warm to everyone else, isn't it? So, Heather, what's your first piece of random shit to share?
Oh, I've got a good one. And huge points if you can guess what this is. This would be amazing. All right, I'm going to take this very gingerly.
Oh.
And show this to you. Do you have any idea what that could be?
Well, I'm going to look down here, and it seems to be, I can. It's barbed wire.
Yes, it is.
And fairy lights.
And fairy lights. So here is the story behind this object, which is a beautiful piece of art. In the fall of 2018, I was invited up into the Australian outback to give a talk on mental health and resiliency, and that's kind of my signature keynote. And I remember, actually, this is really funny. I was sitting in Denver in a restaurant with a friend of mine from Adelaide. She was here in Denver, and I got this message from my agent, and she said, I've got a booking for you, but it's in a place I've never heard of in Australia. It's called Muttaburra.
Okay, and yes.
I looked at my friend from Adelaide, and I said, do you have any idea where this is? And she said, I'm going to need to Google map this. She said, I've lived in Australia my whole life. I've never heard of it. So I went there. Muttaburra is, for those who don't know, which would definitely be all of my American friends who may be watching this, you have to fly from Brisbane to Longreach on kind of a milk run little airplane. And then once I got to Longreach, I was picked up in a giant ute with a big pole on the front of it, which I later learned was so that you could make cell phone calls if you had to, since there's no service. And we drove about 2.5 hours out to Muttaburra. And it was a weekend retreat of women. And so, as you well know better than I do, they've been in quite a drought in North Queensland for many, many years. And so a lot of the farmers' wives or children, older children, were trying to come up with businesses that they could start up. So I work a lot in the startup world as well. So we sort of did a wraparound around mental health and resiliency and starting a business, some sort of a side gig that you could do. Well, whenever I go anywhere, I really like to soak in the local culture. And so I asked if I could see, one of these big sheep farms that was undergoing this drought, and this lovely lady offered to drive me out to hers, and it's called Marchmont. I think we have a couple photos of.
Yeah, there we go.
Of Marchmont, whenever you want to show those.
Yeah.
So we drove another 2 hours, Robin, from Muttaburra, which is incidentally population 88. And we drove all the way out to her farm, and it was really lovely. I got to learn a lot. We spent several hours there together, and she showed me all around and showed me the shearing barn and everything else, and I asked her all these questions. And then she drove me back to Longreach because I was flying out to my next Australian city for my next speaking gig. And whenever I'm in any local community, especially when I'm in one of the regional economies, I really want to spend some of my dollars in the local economy. So she took me to an artists collective that had sprung up in Longreach that was a bunch of, again, like kind of farmers, families who happened to be great at art, and they created these pieces. And the minute I walked in the store, I saw this lovely piece. And it reminded me, I have three purposes in life. And one of the three of them is to be a global conduit connecting people, ideas, organizations, and capital all around the world in ways that accelerate their individual missions and sometimes co-create new ones. So this immediately caught my eye, and I thought, I've got to have this object. And so, first of all, getting it on the airplane was very interesting because they considered it
a weapon.
Yeah, like I could chuck it in the cockpit or something. I don't know. So we had to put it in wrapped luggage. Now, mind you, I still had 6 more weeks on tour in Australia, so I carried this thing around for 6 weeks. But what I learned, so I sent a thank you note to the artist who made it. I got to meet her, and I sent her a follow-up note, and she said to me, without knowing that I had been to this beautiful farm called Marchmont, she said, well, that barbed wire came from a sheep farm or ranch called Marchmont.
Wow, really?
So what are the odds?
I know, that's incredible.
What are the odds that an artist in Longreach would purchase rusted barbed wire from the very farm that I had just spent the day on?
That's a fact.
So that is that's my first piece of random shit in my house for you. And if you have those other 2 pictures, I can tell the tack-on story real quick that goes with it. If you don't, that's okay.
Do you want to put those other 2 photos up, Matt? Please. Oh, here you go. So the one we're seeing now is you and a woman in a red shirt standing in front of what I'm imagining is a Matabarosaurus. Is it?
You are correct. That is what it is at the museum in Brisbane. And the reason we were there, the woman I'm with, her name is Sally Foley Lewis. She's from Brisbane, and she was the MC for the weekend. And there was another photo. I don't know if you have it.
Yeah, what's the other one, Matt? Matabara Motel.
Well, that was my luxury accommodations. They were awesome. They have 4 rooms. That's it. But if you happen to have the picture of me with the older woman, that woman in the photo, her name is Pearl Langdon. And it was on Pearl Langdon's farm that they found the first intact dinosaur bones in all of Australia.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So she is now a widow. She's 84. Well, now she'd be 86. And I was so tickled by her story, and she was so touched. She got teary-eyed and said, I can't believe an American would come all this way just to talk to us way out here in the outback. And it was my honor and my pleasure. And so I wanted to make sure to send her. So I said, I'm going to go see the skeleton. So Sally and I went to the museum, quickly realized Pearl doesn't really do social media. So we had to print the photo out, right? And then I called the event organizer in Longreach, and I said, I'd like to mail this to her if you have an address. And she said, oh, yeah, just put Pearl Langdon, Motabara, Queensland. It'll get to her.
Yep, that's enough. That's enough. I love that. And I love the way that you, when you go to those regions, it is so important that you spend some money in everywhere you go. And, with Queensland opening up again after being locked down for some months, we're all just sort of traipsing off into the bush and visiting those small towns. And it's so nice that, it would be nice when we can go overseas again, but how nice is it that we can spend all of this time in our own state and really support those local artisans and producers and shopkeepers. It's a wonderful thing.
I couldn't agree more, and I've traveled, I think for an American, fairly extensively. In the last 2.5 years, I've spent 10 months total in Australia.
Okay.
And I have been to 32 cities and towns in 4 states. And so I've been to Townsville and Mackay and Rocky and Ipswich and, of course, a lot of time on the sunny coast. I've been to Logan, down to the Gold Coast, and, of course, time in Brisbane and Adelaide and a few other places. But I really love getting out into the local regions and understanding the culture better. I've had a lot of really terrific conversations with Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders, and I was fortunate enough to spend the day with one of the directors of the National Center for Indigenous Excellence in Redfern. So that was a really cool experience too.
That's fabulous. All right, I'm going to share my first piece of random shit, which is a little bit, it's like a quirky little Australian dish that maybe not everyone knows about. So this is a gem iron. It's called a gem iron, and you make gem scones, but they're not scones. They're like little cakes. And here, it probably was the forerunner of the patty cake, which you would call a cupcake. So we don't use, we do mostly use, because our language is very Americanized. So we often say cupcakes. I refuse to. I say patty cakes. But these gem scones are a forerunner of the patty cake, and they're just these really sweet little cakes, tiny little things.
Oh, they look lovely.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a little practicing, Heather, so that if you come to the Sunshine Coast again and if you eat this kind of food, I'd like to make you some gem scones.
I would love those, and it is not a matter of if I come back to the Sunshine Coast, it is when. I've actually had I had plans to be there from May 5th until June 25th, and of course those plans got changed. And I have 2 different sets of friends getting married, one in Queensland, one in South Australia, and they've pushed their weddings out. So as soon as your country will let me back in,
you'll be here.
I'll be here. I'm still actively looking at ways to actually move to Australia for a few years now that all my children are grown and gone. But barring that, I plan to continue to spend. I've been spending about half the year there and half the year in America.
Fantastic.
Just love it there. Yeah.
What's your second piece of random shit, Heather?
All right. My second piece of random shit is something that is really near and dear to me. So I don't know how well you can see
that is exquisite. Yes, how beautiful.
You can see inside. So it's just like a blown glass little bowl.
Wow.
But the story behind this bowl, I've now had this for over 34 years. So when I was quite young, I was 15 when my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And she lived off and on with it until just as I turned 20. We were told that she was going to not be coming home, was terminally ill. And that dish that I just showed you, we used to go to a store together called Lord & Taylor. I'm not even sure if it's still open in the United States. I don't really do much shopping anymore, but it was sort of a higher, upscale store, and one that we could not afford things from. Both my parents were teachers, but she admired that particular bowl. Every time we'd walk by the whole, sort of crystal and whatever display, she really admired it and always wanted it, and just couldn't afford it. And so right before she died, which was actually at Christmas in 1986, I went to Lord & Taylor and I bought that bowl, and I was able to give it to her as my last gift to her in this world. And within 24 hours of me giving it to her, she fell into a coma, and less than 24 hours later after that, she died.
That is that's a beautiful story, Heather. So beautiful.
And I've carried it with me. I've moved all over the country. I've raised 6 children. It's made countless moves, and it's very fragile.
Yes, I'm sure it is.
Everybody in my family knows it's got a very special place on a bookshelf. Not far away from my other random object, but yeah, that's my second random piece of shit that means a lot to me. That is just so exquisite, and I love the story. And
similarly, my mother died young when I was 18, and I I know how that feels. It's, it takes
No.
quite some time to get over, and you just treasure those little connections, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I use every last bit. I think I'm quite confident I had to put it on my credit card, but I didn't want to ask anyone else for the money. It felt like it had to come from me, and
Perfect.
I was overjoyed that she got to enjoy it by her bedside for the last 24 hours of her conscious life.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. How lovely. Well, I will share my last piece of random shit. And
All right.
it's an atlas, and I'm not sure. I think that you might be able to see it in this other camera, but it's an atlas. And when our oldest son Lewis was up a couple of weeks ago, I said, Lewis, I really want to try and put a date on this atlas, work out when it was made. And it was given to me by my father-in-law, and I'm thinking that it's come through his family. And we worked it out because he was very, put on his sleuthing hat. And when we were looking at the map of Australia, we noticed that Alice Springs wasn't listed on there. And
You're kidding.
No, that's right. So in looking at a few things like that, we've determined that it was about the 1870s that this this atlas was created. And I've got the North America one open, and I'll put a photo up later because I've expanded it. But where it has, because I was looking to see whether Denver, Colorado was there in the 1870s, and it was. But
of course, yes.
Yeah, but down below that, above New Mexico and to the right, in this old map is actually the Indian territories. So those states hadn't been established. And I just, I love atlases. I love maps. I love knowing where things are and in relation to each other and that type of thing. And I was just really thrilled when my father-in-law gave that to me, and to be able to sit and explore just a little bit of what the world was like, and now to be able to put an approximate date on it, because it has no date on it, no publication date.
Wow.
So to be able to put that there and just, just boodle through those little countries and states and see where everything is, I just love it.
Well, we do live on indigenous land here in Colorado as well. It's mostly the Ute tribe, and then just south of us is the Hopi tribe.
Okay. Yes.
So, yeah,
yes.
I love your welcome to country.
Yes.
And I love your acknowledgement that you do it I think that's a beautiful tradition, and I wish that we did that here in America. And I'm trying to actually get it started. I found a map online where you can overlay like your state borders and where you live, but it shows the original indigenous tribes here and the land that they owned that is rightfully theirs.
Yes, yes. But, well, we have a map that shows all of the language groups, and we're on Kabi Kabi or Gubbi Gubbi land. And yes, we have our indigenous elders here, and family groups are astounding in the welcome to country that they do. It's very, very beautiful.
Yeah, I'm very touched by it every time I hear it.
Yeah. All right, Heather, it's been such a pleasure to talk with you and to hear that beautiful story of that vase and your mum. It's just so beautiful.
Thank you. Well, I have enjoyed having the company. I will tell you, it's been an interesting time here. As you know, the United States is not handling the pandemic nearly as well as anyone, and so it's always great to visit with people, even virtually. I mostly stay inside my apartment and have for close to 6 months now.
Yeah,
so
that's incredible. Yeah. Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yes, hopefully. What more can you say, really?
Really, there's not much more, but just know that to all my Sunny Coast friends and collaborators, I'm coming back. And in the meantime, I'm continuing to work. I'm actually working with a South Australian company remotely and just accepted a board of advisors role for a Queenslanders company. She's actually founded it in Los Angeles, but she is from Brisbane and moved over to the States to found this company. So I'm keeping my Aussie connections as best as I can.
Good on you, Heather. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Robin, for having me.
Thanks for that. I'm going to put some more photos up later, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a pleasure. If you have other people that you know that might like to share some random shit with me, feel free to suggest it to them.
I certainly will. Do they need to be Sunny Coast or Sunny Coast visitors?
Well, you're in Denver, Colorado, so, and a couple of guests a week or so ago were in Denmark, and so anywhere.
Well, good. I think I've got some willing participants for you in Brazil.
Great.